the oldest writing on the face of the earth, pressed into wet clay 4,000 years ago and buried in the sand until we dug it back up, describes in step-by-step detail what happens to you the moment you die. And it is not heaven, it is not torment, it is not sleep. According to these tablets, death is a journey, a descent, through 7 sealed gates one after another, down past the edge of the sky itself, to a throne room where 7 figures are already seated and waiting for you. The tablets call them the Anunnaki. And here is the part that should stop you cold, because it is the opposite of everything you were ever taught. When you are dragged before those 7 judges, the thing that decides your eternity is not whether you were good or whether you were evil. It is 2 cold, practical things that no preacher has ever told you. Tonight I am going to read you the actual clay, line by line, and show you the map of death that humanity wrote down before it wrote down anything else. If you are new here, subscribe right now. This is the buried tablet. We read the oldest texts on earth, the ones pressed into clay before the Bible, before Babylon, and we read exactly what they say, not what the internet pretends they say. And I have to start with that, because you have heard the word Anunnaki before, and almost everything you have heard is a lie. You have heard they were aliens from a planet called Nibiru, that they came down in ships, that they built us in a laboratory, and harvest our souls when we die. None of that is on the tablets, not one word of it. That entire story was invented in the 1970s by a single writer, and it has nothing to do with what the cuneiform actually says. So forget all of it, because what the real tablets say, the ones sitting in the museums and translated by the scholars at Oxford and by people like Samuel Kramer and Andrew George, is older and stranger, and far more unsettling than any spaceship. On the real tablets, the Anunnaki are not pilots, they are judges, the 7 judges of the dead. And to understand what they do to you, you first have to take the road that leads to their throne, and we know that road, because a goddess walked it and a scribe wrote down every step. The text is called the Descent of Inanna, and it is one of the oldest stories ever recorded. Inanna, the Queen of Heaven, decides to go down into the underworld, the land the Sumerians called Kur, and the land of no return, Ereshkigal. And the tablet tells us that to get there, she does not simply fall into the dark. She passes through 7 gates, 7, and at each gate stands the gatekeeper, a figure named Neti, and at each gate Neti makes her give something up. At the first gate, he takes the crown from her head, and at every gate after that, he strips away one more thing: her beads, her ornament, her ring, the measuring rod from her hand, 1 piece at each threshold, and at the 7th and final gate, he tears the royal robe from her body, and she walks into the throne room of the dead naked, bowed low, with nothing. And every time she protests, every time she asks why, the answer is always the same chilling line: "Be silent, Inanna. A law of the underworld has been fulfilled. You must not question the rights of the underworld. Sit with what that is describing." The oldest map of death we possess says that you do not arrive in the next world as you were. You are stripped, layer by layer, gate by gate, of everything you wore, everything you owned, everything that made you someone up here, until you stand before the judges as nothing at all. And here is where this whole story snaps into focus on this channel, because you have to ask the question nobody asks. Where are these 7 gates? Where is this throne room? And the Sumerians had a very specific answer, an answer most people have never heard. They did not imagine the sky as empty space going up forever. They believed the sky was a solid dome, a great vault holding back an ocean of water above the world, and the earth was a flat disk floating on the waters below. And the realm of the dead, Kur, was not up in that dome. It was beneath it, beyond the edge of everything, sealed off behind those 7 gates. So when the tablets describe the soul going down through the gates, they are describing it being taken to the very rim of the world, to the threshold of the dome, and down into the only place under that dome from which the texts say plainly, no one who enters ever comes out. Picture the layers. Above the dome, an ocean it was built to hold back. Below the earth, the sweet water abyss they called the Apsu, and under all of it, walled off at the floor of creation, lay Kur, the land of the dead. The dome that sealed the sky also sealed the living away from the dead at the other end of everything, and the 7 gates were the locks on the deepest door of all. So understand the scale of the journey the tablets are describing. To die is not to drift up into a bright nothing. It is to be taken down through every layer of the cosmos, past the waters, past the abyss, to the floor of the universe, and through 7 gates that only open one way. So Inanna passes the 7 gates, stripped to nothing, and she reaches the throne room. And the tablet tells us who is there. It says, the Anunna, the Anunnaki, the judges of the underworld. surrounded her. And then comes the line, in the clay, 4,000 years old. They passed judgment against her. There they are, not aliens, judges, 7 of them, seated, the council of the dead. And the moment a soul is brought low before them, they render their verdict. And beside them, on the great throne of that place, sits the queen. Her name is Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, the ruler of Ereshkigal. And when the 7 judges have spoken, the tablet says, Ereshkigal, fastened on Inanna, the eye of death. She spoke the word of wrath. She uttered the cry of guilt, and Inanna, the queen of heaven herself, was struck dead on the spot, turned into a corpse, and hung on a hook on the wall like meat. If the 7 judges and the queen of the dead could do that to a goddess, the tablets are asking, what do you imagine they do with you? If this is already getting under your skin, leave one word in the comments right now. Write Ereshkigal, the Sumerian name for the land of no return, the house beyond the 7 gates. Every comment carries this to someone else who has wondered what is actually waiting. And the throne room is not empty of officials, because the underworld in these texts is run like a kingdom, with a court and a bureaucracy. We get to see it through other eyes, in the most famous story Mesopotamia ever produced, the Epic of Gilgamesh. When the wild man Enkidu, the friend of the hero Gilgamesh, is dying, he has a dream, and the dream is so terrible that he wakes screaming. In it, he says, the sky cried out and the earth answered, and a figure came for him, a man whose face was dark like a bird of the storm, with the paws of a lion and the talons of an eagle. The thing seized him by the hair, overpowered him, and pressed him down, and changed his arms into wings covered in feathers, and led him along the road of no return, down into the land of the dead. And there he describes what he sees. He sees Ereshkigal on her throne, and kneeling before her he sees a scribe. The tablet names her Belitzeri, the scribe of the underworld, and she is holding a tablet, and she is reading it aloud. Think about that image. In the land of the dead, there is a record keeper, and every death is written down on a tablet, and that tablet is read out before the queen. The Sumerians, the people who invented writing, imagined that even death keeps its accounts in clay. Your name, your end, inscribed and filed in the house of dust. But before you are filed, you have to be brought down, and the tablets are very clear that this is not a gentle thing. The Descent of Inanna describes the beings who do the dragging. They are called the Gala, and the way the text describes them should chill you, because they are the perfect enforcers. The Gala, it says, know no food and know no drink. They eat no offerings, and they drink no libations. They accept no gifts. You cannot feed them. You cannot bribe them. You cannot beg them. They want nothing you have. They take no pleasure in a wife. They have no sweet children of their own to kiss. And so, the tablet says, they are the ones who snatch the wife from the husband's lap and tear the child away from the knee of the nurse. They are sent up from the underworld to seize the dead and march them down through the 7 gates, and there is nothing on earth you can offer them to stop it. And the rest of Inanna's story shows you exactly how merciless that law is, because Inanna does get out. Through a trick of the wise god Enki, she is brought back to life and allowed to climb back up through the 7 gates. But the underworld does not give anything away for free. The law of Ereshkigal is absolute. No one leaves unless someone else takes their place. And so the Gala swarm up out of the gates behind her, clinging to her, and they will not leave until she hands them a substitute, a living soul to drag down in her place. And here is the part that will stay with you. As Inanna walks back through her cities, she finds everyone she loves in mourning for her. Her servant is dressed in filthy rags, weeping in the dust. Her sons are wailing, and because they grieved for her, because they mourned, she will not let the Gala touch them. She protects every single person who wept. But then she comes home, and she finds her own husband, the shepherd King Dumuzi, and he is not mourning at all. He is sitting on his throne in fine, clean robes, dressed in splendor, untroubled, as if she had never died. And Inanna looks at the one person who did not grieve for her, and she fixes on him the same eye of death that was fixed on her, and she says to the Gala, take him. And they seize Dumuzi and drag him down through the gates to the house of dust. Read what that story is quietly teaching. The ones who mourned were spared. The one who did not mourn was taken. Even in the oldest story we have, grief is not weakness. Grief is the one thing that bought mercy at the gates. The ones who wept for her were passed over. The one who could not be bothered to weep was the one dragged down in her place. If this is landing, hit the like button now. It is the fastest way to put this in front of someone who needs to see what the oldest book on earth says is coming for all of us. So now you have descended. The Gala have taken you. The 7 gates have stripped you. The 7 judges have passed sentence. Belitzeri has written your name, and you are in. So what is it actually like? The place the Sumerians believed every single human being goes. And here Gilgamesh gives us the answer in Enkidu's dream, and it is the bleakest, most haunting description of the afterlife in any ancient text on earth. The dead, the tablet says, dwell in the house of darkness, the dwelling of Ereshkigal, the house where those who enter do not come out, on the road from which there is no way back. And inside that house, I am quoting the clay now, they dwell in darkness. Dust is their food, and clay is their bread. They are clothed like birds with garments of feathers, and they sit in the dark and light is never seen. That is the Sumerian paradise and the Sumerian underworld, all at once, for almost everyone. A gray house of dust, where the dead crouch in the dark and eat clay forever. And here is the detail in that dream that should level you. Enkidu looks around the house of dust, and he sees who else is there. He sees the kings. He sees the crowns of the rulers of the earth gathered in heaps. He sees the priests, the high ones, the great ones, the men who in life had ruled the land and worn the crowns, and they are all there in the dust, serving, pouring water, reduced to nothing alongside the beggar and the slave. Everything you build up here, every title, every throne, every name carved in stone, the tablets say, means absolutely nothing the moment you pass the seventh gate. Death levels the king and the pauper into the same gray dust. And this is the engine of the most famous story the ancient world ever told, because when Gilgamesh, the mightiest king who ever lived, 2/3 a god, watches his friend Enkidu die and rot in front of him, he is seized by a terror so total that he abandons his throne and runs into the wilderness filthy and half-mad, searching for a way to escape the house of dust. The entire epic, the oldest great story humanity wrote down, is the tale of the most powerful man alive trying to outrun the seven gates. And the ending, the lesson carved into the clay for 4,000 years, is that he fails. The king does not escape. There is no escaping it. The most a mortal gets, the tablet says, is to build something with his name on it and to be remembered. So that is the question that should be burning in you now. If everyone, good and evil, king and slave, ends in the same house of dust, then does anything you do in this life change anything at all about your death? And the answer the tablets give is yes, but not the answer you expect, not even close. Because here is the twist, and it is the reason this video exists, and it is the single strangest thing the Sumerians believed about death. Your fate in the underworld is not decided by whether you were good. There is no weighing of your heart against a feather. That is Egypt, a different people, a different river, and it came later. In the Sumerian tablets there is no moral scale at all. Whether your eternity in that house of dust is bearable or unbearable comes down to two cold things that have nothing to do with sin. And we know exactly what they are, because there is another tablet, the one scholars number as the 12th tablet of Gilgamesh, where Enkidu comes back from the dead just long enough to answer Gilgamesh's questions about who suffers down there and who does not. And the first thing the tablet says is how many sons you left behind. It lists them, one by one, like an accountant. The man who left one son behind, Enkidu says, weeps alone beside a single peg, driven into the wall. The man with 2 sons sits on 2 bricks and eats a piece of bread. The man with 4, his heart is glad. The man with 5 lives like a good scribe. And the man who left 7 sons behind sits on a throne among the gods themselves and listens to their judgments. 7 sons, and you are a companion of the gods in the house of the dead. None, and you are alone in the dark forever. And the second thing is even more haunting, because it does not depend on you at all. It depends on whether the living remember you. The tablet says the man whose body was properly buried, and for whom offerings are still made, whose family still pours water for his spirit, that man rests. But the man whose corpse was left lying in the open, the man with no one to bury him, the man whose name no one speaks and for whom no one leaves food or water, that man, the tablet says, eats the scraps and the crumbs that are tossed out into the street forever. Read that again and let it land. In the oldest vision of the afterlife humanity ever wrote down, you are not saved by being righteous. You are not condemned by being wicked. You are saved by your children and by your burial. The dead, in the Sumerian mind, are utterly dependent on the living. Your eternity is in the hands of whoever you leave behind and whoever still says your name. If you know someone who has lost a person they still pray for, still tend, still cannot stop thinking about, send them this video. Because 4,000 years ago, people built an entire religion around the idea that doing exactly that is what keeps the dead from starving in the dark. And think about what that tells you about these people, because it is the most human thing imaginable. They were not primitive. They invented the city. They invented writing, law, the wheel, the first schools. And when these brilliant people turned and looked death in the face, they did not lie to themselves and promise a paradise. They wrote down, in clay, with their eyes open, that the end is a house of dust for the king and the slave alike, and that the only mercy in the whole bleak picture is to be remembered, to be buried, to be tended by the ones who come after you. That is why they buried their own dead beneath the floors of their own homes, not out in some distant field, but right there under the room where the family ate and slept, to keep them close. And once a month they performed a ritual the scholars call the kispum, a meal for the dead, where the living would set out bread and pour fresh water down into the grave and speak the names of their ancestors aloud, one by one, so the dead below the floor would have something to eat and would know they were not forgotten, because a spirit with no offerings, a name no one spoke anymore, did not simply fade. The tablets warned that it became a hungry ghost, a restless thing that climbed back up and haunted the living, sickening the very family that had abandoned it. To feed your dead was not sentiment, it was survival, for them and for you. That is why, to a Sumerian, a son was not just an heir, but a lifeline reaching down past the 7 gates, and it is all still there, pressed into clay by people who have been dust themselves for 4,000 years, sealed under the same dome they believed held back the sky, waiting in the drawers of a museum for someone to finally read it back, and it leaves one last door standing open, the one this channel keeps walking toward. Because if the dead go down beneath the dome, through the 7 gates into Ereshkigal, then the question the tablets only whisper is what lies on the other side, above the dome, beyond the waters the Sumerians said it held back, and whether the 7 who judged the dead first came down from there. That is a thread for another night, and I am going to keep pulling it. For now, if you walked all the way down to the House of Dust with me, then you know what the oldest writing on Earth actually says waits at the end, and it is nothing like what you were told. So leave the word Ereshkigal in the comments below, the land of no return, the house beyond the 7th gate. Write it so I know you made the whole descent. Subscribe to The Buried Tablet, because every week we dig another one of these out of the ground and read it back to life. And carry this with you, because the people who wrote it were not fools and were not children. They looked straight at death, they wrote down exactly what they believed was coming, and out of all of it, the only thing they begged for across 4,000 years was simply this: do not let me be forgotten.